Hello, welcome to my Premier League predictions. I know I'm kind of cheating it and everyone else has done theirs before the window. I decided to wait and do mine after. I'm basically just doing this just to keep a record to see how well I can actually do. I actually predict Premier League scores on a weekly basis, but I never really do them. I've never done a full table before and predicted everyone, so I'd want to see how I do basically. As I say, I know I'm cheating and I've waited till after the window, but hey, it's my video, it's my rules, this is how we're doing it. So, I'm just going to go straight, we're just going to go bottom to top, and let's start out. So, number 20, I've gone for Brighton. The reason I've put Brighton here is they literally just don't look like they can score a goal at all, and they've had a pretty poor start. The game against Watford, I know they drew, but that red card was just utterly silly, just the maddest red card you've seen, and I just think they just don't look like they can score a goal really. They don't have a recognised goal scorer. Knockout is a talented player and is creative enough that he will set up some goals this season, but he's not good enough to keep them up on his own, is the straight fact. So that Brighton are bottom for me. After Brighton in 19th, this might surprise a few people, but I've gone for Huddersfield. I know that they've started so well. They've kept 3 clean sheets. They've won. They're unbeaten still. They're third in the table at the minute. Huddersfield don't have the quality to stay in this division. I think teams have underestimated them significantly in the games that they've played. Well, even still, I would say they've been. I would say teams. There's one team that's underestimated them, and that was Crystal Palace when they went there. Palace didn't think much of Huddersfield, sort of went at them and played right into Huddersfield's game. I think in the other 2 games, particularly the Southampton game, Huddersfield were really lucky to get a point in that game, and I think a draw would have been a fair reflection on the Newcastle game. So I think over the course of the full season, reality will set back in for Huddersfield and they'll eventually find themselves around the bottom. I don't think they have the quality that other teams will have, and I don't think they've got the funds. And I think the key thing is when you see the other teams that are going to be at the bottom, I think there's a clutch of teams that are all going to be around the bottom, but a few of them are just going to spend a load of money in January basically, or they've done a bit of business now at the end of the window that makes me think that they might just have enough to stay up. But Huddersfield have signed a load of sort of squad players from different European teams, which was good enough to get them out of the Championship, but the Premier League, no, sorry. 18th place, I've gone for Swansea. I would just preface this by saying there's, again, about that clutch of teams, all of the teams that I've got from about 18th to 10th really could all finish in the bottom 3. I genuinely think it's that close. It could really come down to the wire. The reason I put Swansea here though is that I had Swansea in my bottom 3 at the start of the season, and I called it out well before, saying that I think they could struggle. The fact that they've lost Sigurdsson now, I know they've got Sanchez, but for me there's still a few doubts about Sanchez and whether he could carry a team on his own is another thing. And there's a reason Bayern are letting him go out on loan, so I'm not sure he can fill that gap. So across the whole season, the goals that Sigurdsson would score and set up, he would set up 30 goals a season and has done for the past 3 or 4 years. Basically, Sigurdsson has single-handedly kept them in the division 3 or 4 years in a row now, and now that they've lost him, they've just lost a massive void basically that's going to be left by Sigurdsson that I just don't think they can fill. I think they've spent okay, Swansea. I think Tammy Abraham looks like a good player. Sanchez could come good, but the fact they've even lost Llorente, but things like that, unless Abraham's firing, can that team really stay in the division? I don't think so. This could be a team that could very easily drop into bottom 3, but basically the Burnley I've got surviving by the skin of their teeth. Last season Burnley, the reason they stayed in the division was because of their home form, and there's no way that they're going to replicate that home form, so there's a real danger that they could go down. They have to improve their away form. Burnley, they've made some okay signings for Burnley. I can't really see them driving them on. As I say, obviously Burnley know this, Burnley fans know this, Sean Dyche knows this, that they're going to be in and around there come the end of the season, but it's whether or not they can pick up the points early enough to keep themselves in the division. I think they will just, but that could literally be, final day of the season they're surviving Burnley. In 16th place, I've gone for Palace. Palace is a really strange one. Palace is such a strange one. Steve Parish, the owner, is quite prolific in his manager sackings. He loves to get them in and out the door as quickly as he can. As long as Palace stay in the division, that's all he cares about. You see that they're really on. There's sort of a malaise over Selhurst Park, and particularly around De Boer, in terms of him wanting to embed this style of play on the team, him wanting to get them to play this certain way, and it's just not working. I think the Huddersfield game, as I say, I think they underestimated Huddersfield, and they also didn't really take into account the style of play that Huddersfield were going to bring, so they just got out tactics in that sense, and I think that's purely down to the manager. I would totally blame them on that loss. I think they were unlucky against Liverpool. They were very good defensively. Benteke should have scored against them, so if Benteke scores, we could be talking about a totally different Crystal Palace team here. I think the two major talking points for Palace is the losses to Huddersfield and Swansea. Not only did they look tactically inept in both of those games, but those are two teams that they need to beat around them. It's all well and good saying they've had a good performance against Liverpool, but they have to beat the teams around them to stay in the division. You know, the reason that Allardyce and Pulis are so good at what they do is because they set their team up to just beat the teams around them. They never go to, you know, a Man United or a Man City and put on a performance there. They'll just sit back and maybe take a point in those games. But against the teams that are around them, they know how to beat them, basically. And to me, it looks like Palace already have given up 2 games of the season against teams that they really need to beat. So they're already, you know, too far behind. So basically, Palace at this stage of the season, unless they have a miraculous turnaround, are looking at a relegation fight. And I can just see De Boer out the door. You'll bring someone else in. They'll have significant investment in January, but that significant investment I think will be the thing that will keep Palace up. In 15th, I've gone for West Ham. West Ham look really similar to Palace for me. They just don't look like they've got a hope with Bilic. I'm a Newcastle fan, as you can see from the Shearer poster right behind me there. When they played us, we're awful, right? We're awful, and we beat them 3-0. I know they had that one Hernandez chance, but really other than that, what did they do in that game? I can see it very easily being that Bilic goes another couple of games now, and if he doesn't pick up the form, he's out the door basically. As to who they turn to would be quite interesting to see. I'm quite worried that they turn to Rafa Benitez, but that's another thing. I could still see West Ham though, if they were to, even if they kept Bilic, to be honest, or if they got rid of him and replaced him, West Ham will spend again in January. They'll improve their squad enough whereby they'll have enough firepower to stay in the division. To be honest, I think they probably have enough firepower already to stay in the division. It's just the case they need to get those players playing. The main area of concern for West Ham is defensively. I think defensively they look totally inept. Ageing players in Zabaleta and Winston Reid and James Collins. So I think defensively is where they really need to improve. Attacking wise, if you could get the likes of Ayew, Hernandez, Lanzini, Antonio playing, just those 4 players alone are good enough to win games. So I think West Ham will be okay. In 14th, I've gone for my club, Newcastle. I know a lot of people will probably berate me for putting them above the likes of West Ham and Palace, even Huddersfield. This is where I'm putting them, basically. I'm putting them here mainly off of personal pride of not wanting to put them lower, but I do think our biggest asset isn't so much our squad. I do think our squad is worse than, if you look at the likes of Palace and West Ham and Swansea, our squad's worse than those teams. However, our biggest asset is Rafa. I think that clearly showed in the West Ham game. Rafa can out-tactics those sorts of guys, that Bilic is, those sorts of managers. So as long as we've got Rafa, I think we can stay up. If Rafa was to go, if West Ham were to sack their manager and come knocking on the door and Rafa thinks, you know what, with the way the transfer window's gone, I'm away, then I think we're down. I would genuinely put Newcastle possibly bottom, if not second bottom, if we don't have Rafa. The squad is that poor. However, with Rafa, I do think we have the chance, and I think Rafa has clearly identified that we just need to beat the teams around us. I think that if you look at Newcastle games, there's no way we were ever going to beat Spurs. We were still in the game, and then Shelvey made a stupid mistake, but even with Shelvey, I think they probably would have still beaten us. Huddersfield was quite a disappointing result, but we weren't played off the park by Huddersfield. I thought they were quite lucky to get the win. I think a draw would have been a fair result. And West Ham, you can see that when he gets the team playing, we can easily beat the teams around us, and I think there will at least be 3 teams worse than Newcastle this season, and that's why they'll stay up. Not because Newcastle are great, not because they've got great quality, purely because there's 3 teams worse than them, and I would say the same about West Ham and Palace. In 13th, I've gone for Bournemouth. Bournemouth have had a horrible start to the season, but I actually, in my initial predictions that I did right at the start of the season, I had Bournemouth a lot higher. I had them in the top half, just like they'd finished last season. I'm quite disappointed that they've had such a poor start, to be honest. I do think they have enough quality. I really like Eddie Howe as a manager, and I think they've made some decent signings whereby they can certainly improve from what they've started from. And I think they're better than the other teams that are around them there. I think they have better quality. I generally do believe that, even though Bournemouth are a tiny club, and have nowhere near the stature of a club like Newcastle or West Ham. I do think Bournemouth will improve and will finish about 13th, maybe mid-table. They could move up and down a little bit, but around about there they'll be safe basically. I can't see Bournemouth going down. In 12th place, I've gone for Watford. Watford have been a real surprise package at the start of the season. They've had quite a good start. I thought they were actually quite impressive against Liverpool, to be honest, in terms of their attacking abilities. Marco Silva has surprised me to an extent. I didn't think he would actually do as well as he did at Hull. He does seem to have a bit of a tactical prowess about him, and because of the fact they've had quite a good start, I can see them staying up. So I put them in 12th basically. Again, a number of these teams could, basically from 10th to 20th could all move up and down all over the place, but my prediction for Watford would be 12th. 11th, I've gone for West Brom. West Brom have had an amazing start to the season, really. They nearly won all 3 of their games. They nearly as good a start as Man United. I do think they'll fall away slightly as the season goes on. They certainly won't finish as high as they are now. And I think 11th place would be a good finish for West Brom. They may have a very similar season to the last season, where they have such a good start, and then come the turn of Christmas, their players lose focus and they just slowly drift down to the table. But they had such a good start that no one's really able to catch them until right at the end of the season. I could see it going that way, or they'll just have a fairly average season. They've made some decent signings, West Brom, particularly the Krychowiak one. I think that could be a real coup. I know he didn't play a lot for PSG, but whenever I've seen Krychowiak, I've always thought he's a top-class centre midfielder. So the fact that they've got him is a real improvement to their squad. So I think West Brom could do alright. They could do better than 11th. Possibly break into the top 10, but I've got them 11th because I think they may just fade as the season goes on. 10th, I've gone for Stoke. I have to say, similar to Watford, I had Stoke a lot further down at the start of the season. I wouldn't have had them in 10th come the start of the season. I think the signing of Hesse could be a real coup. As long as they can keep him playing, and keep him playing to the level that he was against Arsenal, he could be a really, really smart signing. I thought they looked particularly good against Arsenal. I thought they looked quite good against West Brom too. They seemed like the team that wanted to win the game. Seemed quite good going forwards. And Mark Hughes, he's been at Stoke for a while now. They seem to have an understanding of how they want to play, what they want to do, and they've made some decent additions to that squad. So that's kind of what I've got in 10th, and they've had a decent start. So I'm putting them 10th. I'm going out on a limb and I'm saying Stoke to get the top 10. 9th, I've gone for Southampton. Similarly with the previous 2 teams, Southampton were a lot further down on my table at the start of the season. Pellegrino didn't really excite me as a manager. I know he'd been at Alaves, I think is how you pronounce it. And the previous season he'd done quite well there for a small Spanish side, so that's how we'd gotten this job. Southampton were fairly poor last season. I know some people criticised them for the Puel sacking, the fact that they'd made it to the cup final and finished in the top 10. But when you really dig down into the stats of Southampton, how few goals they scored, particularly at home, the fact they were knocked out the Europa League, you could see Southampton didn't have a great Premier League season. I do think you have to give them credit for the fact they made it to the cup final, but if Southampton want to have ambition, you have to get rid of a manager like that. I would say so personally. So I don't particularly have a go at Southampton fans for for the fact that they may have been against Puel or wanted him out of the club. Pellegrino, though, I think against Huddersfield, I thought they looked good. They were very unlucky not to win that game. Same against Swansea as well. I thought they looked good and possibly or should have won that game. Really, Swansea didn't even have a shot on goal in that game. So I've got Southampton a bit high. I don't think at the start of the season when I made a prediction for them to be lower down, I don't think I really took a look at their squad and you realise the quality that they actually do have in that squad of Tadic and Redmond and Austin and Gabbiadini, Bertrand as well. They have some quality players in that squad, so I'm saying 9th for Southampton. In 8th I've got Leicester. Leicester are a really hot and cold team, and I think they'll be hot and cold throughout the season. Leicester are one of those teams where I could almost see Leicester not doing as well against the teams that you would expect them to, but doing well against teams that are above them almost. Like they would almost pick off points off teams that are above them, which sounds quite strange, but I just think Leicester look good in an attacking sense, but defensively they look all over the place. The game against Man United, I thought Leicester always looked dangerous. The game against Arsenal was the same. Leicester always looked dangerous on the break. It's just defensively they need to sort themselves out, but I just think they have enough firepower that they can shoot themselves up to about 8th place. In 7th, I've gone for Everton. No real surprise that I think everyone has Everton finishing 7th in their predictions this season, so it's no real surprise that I've got them there. Some of the signings they've made have been unbelievable. The money they've spent is astronomical compared to the other clubs that they've been in and around in previous seasons. So Everton, in terms of from 8th to 7th, I think there's going to be a big points gap. I think 10-15 points. There'll be a gap there, and that's when you jump up to the big teams basically. I would consider Everton a part of that pack, but I'm not sure they have enough to break into that team. One thing I would say about Everton would be, I know that they've really started the season well, but I'm just not sure they have that quality striker who can fire them up to into the top 6 basically. Sandro, although he was cheap, I think he's still a developing player, and you can see that's basically why he was so cheap, is because he's not the finished package basically. He's certainly not Lukaku. I think if Everton had Lukaku still, they could have a chance of breaking into the top 6. However, without a recognised goal scorer, I do think they will just fall under the top 6. In 6th place, I've gone for Spurs. I did predict at the start of the season that Tottenham were going to struggle. The Walker sale was really telling for me. I think this could really be the beginning of the end for Spurs. Spurs fans are probably going to hate me for saying that. When you look at what Tottenham have done over the past couple of seasons and the situation that they're in now, Tottenham have to win a trophy this season. If Tottenham don't win anything this season, most of the squad that they have now will move away. I could see Kane would possibly stay because of his loyalty to the club. He's one of their own and all that. But the rest of that squad could quite easily be picked apart if they don't win anything this season. Walker has jumped ship already, and you could see other clubs within the Premier League or across Europe saying, well, Alderweireld will have him, Kane, Ali, Eriksen, Dembele. They have such a talented squad that they have to win something this season, otherwise that squad will just be picked apart and Spurs will go back to their floating outside the top 4 mediocrity that they were so used to for however many years. So I would really love to see Spurs win something, because I'd love to see another team do something other than the classic sort of Manchester clubs or Chelsea, but I do feel for Spurs, so I've got them 6. Next up, I've gone for Liverpool in 5th place. Liverpool do have an opportunity to break into the top 4, however I just think with the added competitions they may struggle. The sort of Coutinho saga, the fact they've come out of that and Coutinho is still at the club, I do think is a positive for Liverpool. I don't think Coutinho's the sort of guy that he's going to strop and just not play. I do think Coutinho will play for Liverpool, and if they can get him playing well, then I think that could be a really great decision from the club to reject all those bids from Barcelona. I think from Coutinho's perspective, they've probably gone for a similar sort of thing that they did with Suarez, whereby they say, listen, we'll convince you to stay one more season, have a stellar season here, Barcelona will come knocking on our door again, and we'll let you go this time. From Coutinho's perspective, I don't think it's great. I think he obviously would have preferred the move to Barcelona, but he's just basically got to take it on the chin and play for Liverpool, because if he wants that move now, he has to show it again this season. But For me, I don't think Liverpool have quite enough, just for the fact that they have to spread their squad out so much across the different competitions. So I'm putting them 5th. In 4th, this is going to be the most controversial pick I'll have here in the whole of the table. I've gone for Arsenal in 4th. Even DT and troops on Arsenal Fan TV are screaming at me saying, "What you doing, Blanche? What you doing? Is he mad, yeah?" I can't explain, I don't know why. This is such an unfounded argument as to why I'm putting Arsenal here. I can't explain to you why I want to put Arsenal 4th, but I'm putting them 4th. I don't know why. I just think that Arsenal are going to finish 4th. I do think Liverpool and Spurs will struggle at certain stages in the season. I just think Arsenal just have enough to finish in the top 4. Arsenal last season when you look at Arsenal last season, Arsenal got 75 points and didn't finish in the top 4. That is mental. That is genuinely crazy that they got 75 points and didn't finish in the top 4. If Arsenal would do a similar sort of season, I think they can finish in the top 4. So I'm putting them there, and that's where they're going to stay. 3rd place, I've gone for Chelsea. Despite what's gone on with Conte and the whisperings of him not being very happy with what he's been able to spend in the transfer window and them losing it on the key targets like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Barkley not going there and you know, people like that, I do think Chelsea have shown that they have enough quality to still finish in the top 4, if not in the top 3. And I think that they're going to do that this season. I think Morata could be a real quality player for them. It'll be interesting to see how Chelsea fare in the Champions League, whether or not they can break in and push on there. I think it'll be interesting across the board to see if any English teams can really do well in the Champions League. My personal feeling is that I don't think they can. I can't see an English team doing well in the Champions League, but I would say Chelsea still have that strong squad that won the title last season. I know they lost Matic, but I think they have enough now to still finish in the top 3. Now down to the big top 2. I think everyone's top 2 is virtually the same. It's a toss-up between the Manchester clubs. I've gone for United 2nd. I know they've had this blistering start to the season and they look great. The clean sheets and the goals flying in, and Lukaku's playing great, and you know, Mkhitaryan's had 5 assists and everything like that. I just think as the season goes on, Guardiola's quality will start to show as a manager. I think this could be really close though. I do think the 2 Manchester clubs will create somewhat of a gap between them and 3rd place, and it'll be a 2-horse race for the title. I can't see anyone else keeping up with these 2 teams for the majority of the season, but I just think City have a bit more than Man United. I just think they have that all-round, you know, the attacking quality that City have on offer for them is just unbelievable, and so I think City are going to win the title. Basically, that's what I'm going for, and I've got United 2nd. So those are my predictions for the 2017-18 season. I'd love to know what you guys think. Certainly leave in the comments as to whether or not you had a prediction before the start of the season that has now changed. Similarly to me, as I say, I had a whole table that has drastically changed. The only thing that's really not changed has been the top 2 and bottom 2, but I'd love to hear from you if your predictions have changed at all, or if you have any comment about my predictions. I'm sure you will, particularly about the Arsenal placement. I'm sure a lot of people will have comments about that. But those are my predictions. I'd love to hear what you think, and just let me know. Just drop a comment. Certainly if you're new around here, I'd love if you could subscribe or leave a like on the video or share the video. That would be great. But certainly get commenting, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.